有請 Vivian 留步。Vivian 可以。咁呢個時候咧，請 Mori san咧去到台前，同埋阿 Frank 咧去到台前啦。咁緊接咧，我哋就去到我哋嘅嘉賓討論環節啦。咁今日咧好開心咧，可以邀請到廣州美術學院工藝美術學院非遺研究中心嘅主任方昕女士作為我哋呢一節嘅回應嘉賓，有請。咁呢個時間咧就交個時間俾阿 Frank 啦。
All right. Thank you all for your presentation. Thank you for your conversation with the washi master. And thank you for reminding us of some old personalities. Aren't you going to introduce Mrs. Xi? Yes. Yeah. All right, and thank you for coming here. And we're hoping to have your reactions to these papers.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here. It's been too long since we were able to cross the border. I'm Fang Hsin from the Academy of Fine Arts in Guangzhou, and I'm from the Department of Art and Craft. First of all, may I congratulate CU on the marvelous achievement on the project. And I wasn't able to participate in the journey at the very beginning, but I'm so glad to be here to see what we have achieved. And I'm particularly happy to see so many young students here, secondary students, on a Sunday morning. So I hope you all enjoy yourself this morning, especially at the panel session, because in many occasions, panel session is the equivalent to coffee break. But I'm so glad that you stay. So should I speak in Cantonese or English? We had a brief discussion this morning. Mr. Mori actually understands Cantonese. So I think, Mandarin or Cantonese actually makes me feel more comfortable. So should I first, comment is a very big word, it's a serious word. So I would rather share some of my point of views with the issues that we talk about this morning. But could I first of all echo what Dr. Ting has just mentioned? 工藝同埋生活嘅距離究竟喺邊度？究竟有幾遠呢？咁其實我自己本身唔係學藝術出身嘅，亦更加唔係學工藝出身嘅。咁我本科碩士同博士都係讀同傳媒相關嘅。咁我自己嘅工作經歷就更加曲折一啲啦。咁我曾經係記者、編輯，後尾就轉行做咗外交官，係中國駐英國大使館文化處嘅外交官。所以我長期關注中國同埋英國嘅文化政策，特別係對工藝嘅政策。咁而家當然啦，喺廣州美院就係作為老師啦，同埋呢個研究嘅人員。咁所以咧對香港同埋廣東地區嘅，或者成個華南地區嘅工藝，特別係非物質文化遺產嘅話題會更加關注。咁頭先丁博士提到嘅幾個問題，其實亦都係我哋喺教學當中經常會問自己嘅，就係我哋嘅學生畢業咗之後，佢哋點樣定位自己？佢究竟係一個藝術家、設計師，定係一位工匠呢？咁所以其實呢個係會直接影響到佢哋喺呢個社會當中嘅角色，同埋佢哋點樣將工藝嘅呢個教育帶去佢哋嘅生活當中。其實你頭先都提到好重要一點，就係呢個市場同埋呢個佢哋從業環境嘅問題啊。咁其實我哋今年嘅畢業展呢，幾日之前就已經啱啱結束咗啦。咁所以我都一直喺度反思呢個問題。又一屆畢業生畢業咗啦，咁佢哋點樣去面對呢個社會呢？ So are they fully equipped, or are they really ready for the journey ahead? 好多人都話讀工藝呢，畢業即係失業啦。咁確實係你好難揾到一個同你嘅專業好 match 嘅工作。但係我對呢件事情係非常樂觀嘅。 咁一個陶藝嘅學生，一個漆藝嘅學生，佢畢業咗之後，未必一定會從事翻同漆藝、陶藝或者工藝相關嘅專業，但係呢4年嘅教育一定會喺佢哋嘅 DNA 當中留低好多痕跡。工藝嘅呢種思維嘅方式，同埋呢種同社會嘅連結同埋參與感，一定會影響到佢哋未來嘅呢個職業生涯嘅發展同埋生活嘅。所以其實我對呢一點係比較樂觀嘅。但係講翻頭先都係關於呢個工藝從業人員嘅呢個生存嘅生態嘅問題。其實我自己係因為喺非遺中心工作啦，咁其實中國對於非遺嘅呢個定義同埋概念咧，其實係非常之清晰嘅。咁同埋咧，而家文化部對非遺嘅呢個工作嘅理念，其實係好明確，就係見人、見物、見生活。見人比較好理解啦，就係見到傳承人、見到從業人員；見物亦都非常之好理解啦，就係見到the object。但係見生活咧，什麼是見生活咧？就係呢一樣嘢喺當今嘅社會當中，佢是否仍然被需要？咁我諗其實使用係最好嘅傳承，我係非常堅持呢一點嘅。使用係最好嘅傳承。如果一樣嘢佢喺當今嘅生活當中，佢已經唔再需要啦，就好似西湖嘅呢個油紙傘，廣東話係咩？油紙傘。而家喺西湖邊其實賣得好好啊，50蚊一把，但係粗製濫造的油紙傘，大家買嚟做乜嘢咧？就喺西湖邊影張相，好似許仙同埋白素貞咁樣樣，跟住就劈咗佢噶啦。因為油紙傘係唔符合現代生活㗎，你唔可能帶入地鐵，你唔可能將佢折埋帶上飛機，所以大家用完之後係擺埋一邊，唔會再使用佢。咁所以油紙傘係咪仲係當年嘅油紙傘咧？我認為其實佢已經唔係當年嘅油紙傘啦，因為佢已經失去咗使用嘅功能。咁但係油紙傘佢最重要嘅技藝係佢嘅這個糊紙的藝術啊，就是它的這個油紙傘的這個糊紙的技藝。咁原來呢個技術佢係可以轉化嘅，佢唔做一把呢個傘 umbrella。佢可以做咩？佢可以做燈，佢可以做一張凳，佢可以做一個涼亭，佢依然可以防水，依然可以這個塑形，同埋佢依然可以有好多使用嘅方式。咁你話呢張凳用油紙傘嘅技術做嘅呢張凳，佢係咪油紙傘咧？佢當然唔係啦，一張凳同埋一個 umbrella。但係你話佢唔係油紙傘咯？我認為其實佢嘅 DNA 係延續咗油紙傘嘅 DNA， 佢仍然係油紙傘。只不過佢嘅前世同今生嘅呢個表現嘅形式已經唔一樣啦。所以頭先丁老師提到嘅轉化嘅問題，亦都係我哋而家即係廣州美院工藝院非遺中心好關注一個話題，就係傳統技術嘅傳統技藝嘅現代性轉化嘅問題。所以呢個今日就當然唔可以展開講啦，但係接下落嚟我會同丁老師再溝通嘅。咁就係 Should I go on or should we have a break to discuss with
It's
other...
entirely up to you, but maybe Vivian and
Yes,
Mori-san would have some reactions.
Yeah, of course.
Might be I just respond to the comments first in English, and so that everyone would maybe able to join our discussions and dialogue. And that thank you for your comments, especially on the way that how we think about the transformations of contemporary craft, because I think it is the most important things in a way that we know that the world evolves, and there are a lot of craft stuff might not be adaptable to contemporary life, and what would we do about this? And I think it's actually coming back to the things that we are thinking about craft. What does it mean? Is it just like a skills, a techniques, or is it something like traditions that should be so sacred that we can't change anything of it? Or if we want to change about it, what should we do? And so thanks for bringing this up, especially for using this as that oil-coated umbrella. And I think it is an excellent example to show that how we can transform craft object into something that would adapt it into contemporary life. But in other things, I would like to respond in regards to your example is that I think the most interesting things about craft is its amazing skills of transformations, and also about how it documents our memories. It's not just the memories of making something, it's the memories about how we survive, how we make use of our material environment, and also how we use different materials to fulfill our life. And so, in fact, on top of that, I would like to bring Frank into this discussion, is that, so how would you see the distinguished line or the boundary between art and craft? Do you think that there are certain things that we can have dialogue between art and craft, or that you prefer that a craft should be a distinguished discourse? What would you think about that?
Yeah, well, I'll try. No, I was. There's so many related questions to this, and one of them would be kind of vocational. How do you survive doing craft these days? I couldn't help thinking about the word masterpiece. A masterpiece originally was the piece made by an artisan, a craftsman, to sort of graduate within the profession. I've seen a museum of masterpieces in this old association from the Middle Ages in France, and the level of technical know-how is beyond belief. No one today can afford to reach that level of perfection. So I guess that's where the limits between art as an intellectual pursuit and craft as a process of permanent perfection comes in. In the end, all this will be resolved by the fact that you need to make a living at some point. However, and I don't know if you've thought about this, Key, but handmade well-being, the project itself, is not about achieving a profession, even though I know your dream would be to open a school of craft in Hong Kong. And I'm really wondering, sorry, I'm just, my thoughts don't have much shape right now. I cannot reach a conclusion, but I think when you start thinking also about a vocational mission to achieving a craft education and so on, we're really starting to touch on extremely complex institutional issues. Is a university the place for this? I'm thinking in France, for instance, even art schools are completely detached from universities. You don't even get the same degrees when you come to an art school. You can still do art in a university, but then you get the usual masters and so on. Do we need also similar degrees for craft schools and so on? So it's a completely open debate. I don't think anyone has even thought about all those things. So when I learned that Key was, dreaming of creating a school of craft, I immediately think, my God, this is going to be complicated. Because again, the debate about art and so on would enter necessarily about this. I remember some years ago, we were all thinking about whether a PhD for artists was a good idea. Well, now most people accept that it's possible to have a PhD for artists. It was not obvious at all 10 years ago, all right? Are we going to have a BA in craft, a master's degree in craft, and so on? And those are very, very complex, fascinating questions. Sorry, the Mashi master, what kind of education did he have? Yes.
Yeah, like qualifications?
Yes.
Does he go to universities or what?
No, normally we need to be an apprenticeship first. You have to work for more than 10 years. So once he gain the practice, then he can be a professional. Yeah.
Yes. So is there an institutional context for that in Japan? Is it recognized by degrees?
Some government organize a craft like a school. They have vocational. They set up some kind of institution. Anyone who are interested to go into professional industry, they can get the practice for 3 to 4 years. No need to go for really apprenticeship. because of apprentices, normally the master won't let you to make it using his name. Maybe over the 10 years, they get the, like a authorized professional to get entitled, get the title to be individual. But no people can, pay, patient to make it 10 years to be professional. So government make it like institutional, like a 3 to 4 years class. So they can kind of specialize as a kind of so-called professional crafters in Japan.
How about in China? Are there a similar process of apprenticeship and so on?
Take my organization as an example, the Academy of Fine Arts. So a high school graduate has to take part in the national college entrance exam. Only when they passed a certain requirement can they enter the Academy of Fine Arts. And so it's a 4-year program, like any other universities in China. So it's a 4-year. We actually have one of our students here today, one of last year's graduates here. So she has to take 4 years of training program. And the Department of Art and Craft in the Academy of Fine Arts is actually under the umbrella of design. So they hold a degree of design. And then they have to choose their directions, whether it's art and craft, metal and jewelry design, or ceramic design, or lacquer design. So after 4 years, they will receive the Bachelor of Arts. I think that is very common in any other countries as well. But since you have bring up the issue of policy making, so in the policy making point of view, I think there are still debates both in China and in the United Kingdom whether art and craft, how should we define art and craft? So art being the only one, and craft can be reproduced or even mass reproduction. And so I remember one thing, around 10 years ago in the United Kingdom, there was a debate on whether the section of craft should be removed from the Department of DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media, and Sports. The idea is that DCMS think, although craft is always under the administration or care under DCMS. However, they think that craft should be categorized as production, rather than art. So there have been debates on whether the whole section should be removed from DCMS to the Department of Trade and Commerce, I think. But then it was because of the then Prince, now King Charles, and the help of the Craft Council, that the section of craft is now still within the section of DCMS. But I think the debate itself is very interesting. And in China, intangible cultural heritage is now under the care of the Department of Culture. However, craft or craft industry is under the Department of Industry and Information Department. So I think it's a very interesting topic that we should definitely look at because it's up from the policy making level, but I think for the practitioners or our students, it's a very important factor in affecting their future career developments. But I'm not sure about the case in Hong Kong. Is it in the Department of Arts, I think? Culture, or no?
Well, just a quick response to Frank's question. I'm not thinking about a school of craft. I'm thinking about a craft center.
All right.
A craft center is more like a community, including, of course, training, studios, a making space, and also a place for research, for exhibition, or even a cafe, a very good restaurant using off-craft objects. So what I'm thinking is craft education, craft promotion somehow takes place in a community that happens in daily life. That's what I'm thinking. I will talk about later in my presentation in the afternoon, but just a quick response to your question.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think, yes, you gentlemen will probably have something to say about institutions also. You have a question? Yes.
Actually, I have a question for you. I have a question for you and Mr. Singh. Actually, distinction you talk about arts and craft in Europe and China doesn't seem to apply in Japan. Do you have an answer or explanation for that?
Oh, don't look at me.
So if you're talking about the difference or any definition between arts and crafts, I think the art industry in Japan and craft industry in Japan, basically craft become more focused on art. Because of craftsmanship, if you're talking about functional wear, it's always about the debate about the cost. Because of once you're talking about the same. Going to the trading industry, the craft is so expensive. If we just want to complete fulfill the functionality, craft becomes just a hobby piece or someone for collections. But so most of the crafters, because I actually wanted to share, but the time is running out, so I didn't prepare. Nowadays, design plus craft, art plus craft, craft become more diversified to try to break through from the very conventional framework of craft. Because craft time-consuming, not enough successor, and lots of skill required. It doesn't really match to the nowadays very speedy society. If the craftsmen just stick to the very functional wear, it can be replaced by mass production products. This is why we're talking about what is a role of a craft. You have to go into the more spiritual sense. Something can go through to only the human can make. I think the role of the craft sometimes could change by the context of the society. But to me, of course, somebody doesn't need to be so artistic. Somebody just want to play with natural elements. This is also another kind of the function. You can play with the natural material. Nothing about business, nothing about the money. Sometimes you want to produce something you want to make. This is very democratic, very sustainable. You can imagine like a self-sustainable farmer. They produce something for their daily eating, very, very sustainable. But due to the replaced by the mass production, people lost the skill of making by ourselves. I think the old days, long time ago, in some region, they make the ceramic by themselves. Every people can participate to make for themselves. But due to the replaced by manufacturing, then people forgot about that skill. See? What we can learn from, if we are talking about that, we lost the balance between nature and human in some sense nowadays. Why don't we learn from the history? Don't think about the future as the most updated, the evidence, but we can always go back and learn from the practice we used to have, what the human used to have, that kind of skill. Yeah.
Although, sorry, Louis, yes, go ahead. No, Louis. Oh, yes, okay, sorry. No, I was just, I have the same, I wonder, because when you look at the history of Japan, the Meiji era, the introduction of art schools, copied also from the UK, and so on and so forth, and yet there was a focused effort from the government to preserve the craft in ways that really were not preserved in the same way in Europe or America or probably in China either. So I don't think anyone has an answer to that question, but there was an intended effort to preserve this idea. For instance, the very notion of a living, what's the expression again? A living treasure, I don't think there's any other country, maybe now, but we just copied from Japan. So there is something there that is, it's in the history and it's apparently nowhere else. And it's, yes, it's kind of a mysterious thing to notice. So again, I don't think there's an answer beyond the fact that there's a long history of that in Japan that has survived, and intentionally so, I think, by, again, the higher institutions. So yes, the institution issue is always in the background, and sometimes more than just in the background. It shapes everything. I misunderstood. I don't know where it came from, that I thought Key was thinking of a craft school, but a craft center is a completely different issue, and it's an institutional decision, yeah.
I have a question for everyone in this panel. In recent years, there have been more discussion about the concept of craftsmanship, 匠人精神,或者工匠精神, is from the West and also in the East, and is on different level, from the more artistic level to a more corporate level, even to a political level. Many different, say, discussion and mentioning about craftsmanship in many different ways, with many different directions. I have seen this word, say, crafted or handcrafted word be used in many different things. For example, coffee making, or even aeroplane production is craftsmanship. No. So do you think this wave of using this word craftsmanship is a good thing or a bad thing?
To this, when we are thinking about craftsmanship, and that you mentioned that there are different dimensions or level about that, and so basically when we are thinking about craftsmanship as the level of like technique, is a techniques of know to do how to give forms to a materials, right? And then the second thing is I think that it's not just about making things; it's about why you make such an object in such a form. It's about traditions, belief, customs, and then nowadays when we're thinking about craft and it's probably craftsmanship related to how you manage yourself, how you manage your business, and how you survive. And then it's also how you communicate to wider audiences about why it is necessary to make such things and the essence of values of craft in that sense. And so I think that the more liberate of how we think about craft and that we infuse more values and ideas, it helps validate why we are talking about craft today. And I think it's also somehow related to the merit of this project, handmade well-being. Because when we're thinking about craft, we think about making things, and then it's used to put it on sales and put it on the market. But in this project, I think one of the most important things to me is that it invites students to make objects for other people, to serve the communities. And somehow it's kind of like liberate the functions or the usage of craft, and it's also allow craft to be more visible. And so I think, I don't know, probably a good thing, but up to discussions.
我講廣東話。我係一齊從緊殯儀社企嗰邊Pasu。咁咧咁 join 咗同同學參與啦，咁都感謝佢哋啦。咁我都想回應下頭先啱啱幾個問題，尤其是我覺得阿丁博士個分享，我覺得有啲觸動嘅，對我都係有啲。咁我要講一講下啦。咁我20年前讀過阿 Frank 嘅 art history 嘅我自己，因為我之後喺
So actually take the course 20 years ago.
係啊，咁啊，因為我本身我 high dip 喺 art school，跟住poly design degree 咁樣。咁但係我一離開咗就真係離開咗嘅，因為俾阿媽逼啦，咁樣做呢行好似爭啲喎。咁我就有親戚喺殯儀館工作咧，我就入咗去學師。嗰個學師嘅過程就真係好有頭先講，即係嗰種要匠人精神好好聽嘅。咁但係我以前嘅學師係俾人鬧到啊，即係做到所有即係最下難嘅嘢開始做上去咁。我今日我自己除咗係殯儀公司老闆咧，我本身 係而家香港其中好少數得翻2至3個嘅遺體修復師，我係做遺體修復嘅，我係做咁當然呢個頭先講話嗰個 DNA 以前學嘅嘢係真係幫咗好多嘅。我嘗試講下即係個歷程咧，我覺得我做學呢個遺體修復嘅時候係純粹技術上去學習嘅啫，去處理一個遺體佢撞車跳樓爆到點都好咁，總之嘗試做翻好。咁但係到我再學多啲做多啲，我諗我都要求我自己唔係淨係做翻好啦。咁因為要呈現到個樣子俾屋企人再睇得好啲。嗰個已經因為有咗好多我自己嘅背景咧，做得可以再仔細啲、再靚啲咧。咁但係之後我再學，可能我要再進修去再學就係學即係哀傷輔導嘅嘢，要學習點樣去溝通，嗰個係同一個喪生者溝通嘅藝術。到今日我而家做殯儀公司嘅時候，我係要學習喺個儀式上令到成件事，唔係淨係個遺體，唔係淨係同佢溝通，而係成個儀式個儀式感，成個場地點樣去佈置，嚟嘅人參與嘅互動，最後亦都要係一間公司可以維生啦，有個 business model， 咁係進化緊嘅，我覺得。而嗰樣嘢亦都個 DNA 喺度嘅時候，個 DNA 亦都喺度，個細胞都喺度變大緊，喺度令到佢更加豐富。走入到社區，我將呢啲故事講翻出嚟，入到社區，再希望有新嘅人參與咁所以而家就算我自己個社企都成4-5個後生仔女係 full time 喺度做，係想像唔到係咁後生嘅。咁但係呢個就係我哋希望，即係我覺得喺今日聽到嘅嘢，我覺得回應翻其實係有好多可能可以發生，唔係淨係喺個學校讀完書咁樣咯。
多謝 Prof 嘅分享。不如依家咧，我哋將呢個問答環節就開放俾公眾可以發問啦。因為其實時間咧都好緊絀嘅。會唔會頭先有同學、老師又或者公眾咧聽完咁多位講者分享之後咧，係會有啲問題想問佢哋㗎？咁可以隨便舉手，會唔會有啊？大家都好似好 enjoy， 然後冇問題係咪啊？有冇啊？睇下先。老師會唔會有啲問題？有關可能工藝教育上面嘅，有冇呢？如果冇嘅話，我哋嘅嘉賓或者其他嘉賓有冇其他問題想發問啊？有冇？如果冇，咁我哋就不如早少少去食 lunch 啦，因為我哋其實 lunch time 咧好少時間，都1個鐘，我驚大家趕唔切翻嚟。咁但係走之前咧，我哋影張大合照先。咁有請各位嘉賓咧，可能嚟到台前，咁我哋影一張嘉賓大合照。咁然後咧，各位參加者咧，亦都可以稍為向前移少少。咁我哋稍後影埋大家一齊影一張大合照。